One summer moment can change a child's life. Through Toys for Tots Give and Go initiative, your support provides books, games, toys, and outdoor adventures that spark curiosity, creativity, and a love of nature. Whether it's fishing, learning a new sport, reading under a tree, or playing with friends, these moments build confidence and lifelong memories. For too many children, those moments never come. You can help change that this summer. Visit toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots, delivering hope beyond the holidays.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Hey, Jackson Dart, the quarterback who likes Trump, good for him, has a beautiful girlfriend. Oh, wow. Now that's news. Gosh, I tell you, I wonder about this New York Post. Jackson, let's see, girlfriend stuns in a bathing suit. I would imagine she would. I imagine so. Okay, Jason Dart, whatever the hell. Why is this guy such a viral sensation? We've been supporting Trump around here for many, many years. All right, I guess the assumption is that the NFL has gone woke, and I guess some of the players have been complaining about it all. But all right, just so you know, Jackson Dart has a hot girlfriend. It would be noteworthy if he did not actually have a hot girlfriend. That would be possibly more newsworthy. Before we get into the other stuff, can I just show you what an obnoxious creep this Scott Pelley character is? Scott Pelley, who meets the new boss. Hey, companies get bought, management turns over. It's kind of the thing that most of us have learned to deal with, right, as employees. We all have our, hey, if you're lucky enough to own the business, great. But in the more likely chance that you work for somebody else, that's great too. You have to respect management. You have to respect it. You have to, and I'm not saying you have to tolerate being mistreated or anything like that, or certainly nobody should tolerate corruption but the way this Scott Pelley behaves, first of all, the guy's a drama queen. Now, who am I talking about? Scott Pelley is one of the top anchors on 60 Minutes, or I shouldn't say anchor, he's a correspondent. All right, these guys, they start thinking of themselves as guardians of democracy, and right? So here he is last year, about a year ago actually, goes to Wake Forest University to give the big speech, the big graduation speech. And back then, if you're mainstream media, what do? You come out against Trump, right? So he makes it this big take down Trump. Look at me, I'm taking down Trump. So let's go to Wake Forest University last year, the most pompous TV news person in the world, Scott Pelley. Go ahead.
But in this moment, this morning, our sacred rule of law is under attack. Journalism is under attack. Universities are under attack. Freedom of speech is under attack. And insidious fear is reaching through our schools, our businesses, our homes, and into our private thoughts.
Woo.
The fear to speak. In America.
I don't think...
Power can rewrite history with grotesque, false narratives. They can make criminals heroes and heroes criminals. Power can change the definition of the words we use to describe reality. Diversity is now described as illegal. Equity is to be shunned. Inclusion is a dirty word.
Oh, my gosh.
This is an old playbook, my friends.
My friends.
There's nothing new in this.
Oh, shut up. Yeah, it's just like Nazi Germany. We don't like DEI. We don't like that stuff. This woke crap came about 20 minutes ago. Some of us were brave enough to stand up against it. Now that it's going away, Scott is wetting his pants because he was one of the chief defenders of it and embracers of it, because that's what you do in corporate America. If you're white and if you're from Texas, you march to that drummer pretty damn quick. So now he's giving it to the boss at CBS News. The new boss comes in, Hey, man, hi, I'm the new producer of 60 Minutes. I hope we can make this work. I really look for, I'm all about the journalism. And he goes, you are trying to murder the journalism. Hey, no, I'm not. I mean, I would just like to make this work between us. You and your boss, Barry Weiss, have catastrophically harmed this institution that we love. This is all quoted in the newspaper. This happened yesterday. He's yelling and screaming at the new guy, his new supervisor. Nobody gets to do that. You shouldn't be able to get to do that. You weren't elected. The CBS is not an elected position. You're an employee. Now, he's a troublemaker. He's an absolute troublemaker. Here he is 7 years ago, bitching and moaning about management at CBS. That's like 5 management teams ago. You start to wonder if the problem is you, Scott Pelley. Maybe the problem is you. So here he is again on national television, bitching and moaning about some boss who didn't like him, and he made a federal case out of it. You ready for that? You got the Scott Pelley from the earlier one? I know you do. Yeah, when he's on the Brian Stelter show. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I have you a question about CBS, your day job there. 18 months of scandals and shakeups at CBS News and the rest of the company. What has it been like for you and your colleagues? Now, of course, as a new news president, a new boss at 60 Minutes, everything's changed.
Well, we've been through a dark period of the last several years of incompetent management and sort of a hostile work environment within the news division. I lost my job at the Evening News because I wouldn't stop complaining to management about the hostile work environment. But as you say, now everything has changed. We have a new chairman of CBS Corporation, Joe Iannello, a visionary leader. We have the first woman president of the news division, Susan Zirinsky. And I've known her for 30 years. She's been at CBS more than 40 years. She has CBS News DNA.
Stop.
And now we have a new...
Just so you know, all these guys got fired. Okay, he's still there, though. And he's still bitching and moaning about everything. Keep going.
New executive producer, Bill Owens, at 60 Minutes. And it's all blue sky from here. I'm very excited. I know these people, and I know that we're on the right track.
You were replaced by Jeff Glor on the Evening News. Now Norah O'Donnell's replacing him. You say you lost your Evening News job because you were complaining about hostile work environments?
That's true. Several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I went to the president of the news division and explained to him that this hostile work environment couldn't go on for women and men. And he told me if I kept agitating about that internally, then I'd lose my job. And I went to his boss, who told me that he didn't share my concerns. And so, having exhausted the possibilities in the news division, I went to the chairman of the CBS Corporation, who listened to me very concerned for an hour, asked me some penetrating questions about what was going on. I didn't hear back from him, but in the next opportunity in my contract, I was let go from the Evening News.
Well, you weren't let go from the company, you jerk. All right? He's constantly... How bad was the workplace harassment? Why aren't you specific? Why is it? It was some little beef you had, some petty little thing that you had. Workplace harassment, what do they call it? A hostile workplace at CBS News? CBS News, what do they call it? The Tiffany Network? Cronkite, Rather. These people are just people. And when you go around pretending that CBS is a religion, that it's better than everybody else, right? This is what results. This pompous freak, Scott Pelley. I urge, I implore, I demand. I don't know. Look, if you got to get rid of this guy. He's a troublemaker. If you guys mean business over there, who's running that place? Scott Pelley and his little associate producers over there at 60 Minutes. Ooh, Scotty, you really gave it to him that time. Get him the hell out of there. You got to get him the hell out of there. You never should have allowed this to happen. But now that it's happened, you've got to fire him. And you can get some other pompous jerk to do that news if you have to. They're not doing it. Yeah, I find it very funny. All right, speaking of pompous jerks, I want to go back to MSNBC. And Jill is letting us know, I guess, if only they had listened to me, but apparently she didn't say much when she was in the White House. Back to that, if you don't mind.
The guidelines and set forth by the American Urological Association And so they didn't do the PSA, and consequently, we have stage 4 cancer that's in his bones.
Certainly many Americans who are wondering, though we know PSAs aren't often administered to men after their early 70s, why would the President of the United States have been an exception to that? The diagnosis came in May of 2025, and considering what the President's health is now, had he continued his reelection bid, had he been elected again, would he have been able to serve as president? Would he have had to resign?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
This, of course, there has been a lot of speculation, Dr. Biden, about the president's, ability to serve that second term. We know what happened, the debate that night in Atlanta in the summer of 2024. You write in the book about how your immediate reaction is you were fearful that something was wrong, that perhaps he even had a stroke. But publicly, of course, you said that he did well. You cheered him on that evening. What do you say to people who today wonder, if you thought that a medical episode had happened, did you recommend that he go? Did you recommend that he go to a doctor then?
Well, we had a whole team of doctors around us. I mean, I think most Americans may not know that we have a team of I have a team of doctors around me as First Lady. Joe had a team of doctors around him.
Hey, why the hell did they need a team? Why would they need a team? Why doesn't he have a doctor like everybody else? What's up with the team thing? Jill Biden, they're going to watch her. Do you need a doctor all day long? No. This faux royalty thing. Keep going. Weird.
Scared to death to see that. But the doctors were there. And so right after he got off of stage, I mean, let's face it, Joe knew that this was not a good performance. I mean, as we walked off the stage, he whispered to me, Jill, I'll put it nicely, screwed up, didn't I? And I said, yeah, Joe, you did.
Yeah, Joe, you did.
So
how about that?
Knew. And then we got off the stage, and, I went to get my stuff. He was checked out by the doctors. They said he's fine. We went on to do 3 more events that night. And Joe was like he always was. And so to me, as I look back, I mean, that was so inexplicable. And to this day, it's just inexplicable to me.
So that moment, of course, triggered real debate within the Democratic Party about whether he should continue his candidacy. Nancy Pelosi appeared on our show on July 10th that year, 2024, a couple weeks after the debate. When I asked her if Joe Biden still had her support, she was very coy in her response, saying this.
It's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short.
At that moment, I reminded her that he had already announced his intention to stay in the race, but she simply repeated her answer, which many Democrats took as a signal that she wanted him.
I saw the show.
That she wanted him to step out. Have you and the president spoken to the former speaker since then?
Oh, my gosh. Well, yes. And Joe was just at a dinner in Washington with her, a private dinner. And also, we saw her, I didn't see her, but Joe did at Tatiana Schlossberg's funeral. Caroline Kennedy's daughter. And, we were in the pew. This is so typical Joe. And I don't know whether you're Catholic or not, but sign of peace. Yeah. And so Joe was at the edge of the pew, and he got up and he went to the back of, I saw him go to the back of the church. I just knew. I mean, you can't be married to somebody for almost 50 years and not know where the heck he was going. And I just knew he went back to see Nancy. And I found out later, he said, they said, peace, let's be friends. And we got in the car and I said, where did you go? And he told me the story.
Well, wait a second. That was only 2 months ago. That was just a couple of weeks ago. This fallout happened in 2024. Hey, by the way, offering each other the sign of peace at church. Who the hell goes walking up and down the aisle? Right? You kind of look behind you, you look next to you, you look in front of you, right? You don't work the room. Even that I find a little bit iffy, the whole story. All righty. One moment, please.
In this 25th anniversary year of September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation continues to honor America's heroes. Heroes like Fire Lieutenant Michael Wells, who was inspired by 9/11 to serve his community. After 14 dedicated years of service, he lost his battle with occupational cancer, leaving behind his wife, Katie, and their 3 children. Tunnel to Towers honored Lieutenant Wells by paying off the family's mortgage in recognition of his sacrifices. Donate $11 monthly and amplify your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
May I read you something that I've been working on for a very long time? I know it's been kind of frustrating for me as well, but I'm about to drop it. This whole Gavin Newsom book where he makes all kinds of weirdo mistakes. He says he's coming clean about who he is, and he's sorry for being somebody else, for being a phony, but he's not. He actually just celebrates being a phony in the book. So at this point, I'm winding up the piece, and I write this. At this point, you may be wondering whether I have devoted an unreasonable amount of attention to Gavin Newsom's memoir. Fair enough. Most politicians write books. Most are forgotten almost immediately. Why spend so much time on this one? Well, partly because Gavin Newsom may become president of the United States, but more importantly because this book is unusually revealing. Newsom presents it as a personal account of who he is and how he became the person he is today. Whether he realizes it or not, he succeeds. The book reveals a great deal. In fact, it reveals far more than Newsom appears to understand, and that is what makes this book important. The longer I spent with the memoir, the more I noticed a recurring habit. Newsom rarely leaves a thought in its natural state. He enlarges it, he decorates it, he elevates it. Early in the book, he writes, I am writing this from a time and place where the seasons have already begun to lose their capacity to tell us what time and place it is. A few paragraphs later, California's problems become calamities that have challenged the very notion of governments. Describing the demands of public office and parenthood, he writes, a life where my every movement as father and governor can feel orchestrated. Discussing his childhood, he explains that his father's presence was episodic. Now, none of these examples is especially significant on its own. Together, however, they reveal a pattern. The seasons do not merely change, they lose their capacity to tell us the time. Government is not challenged. The very notion of governance is challenged. And this tendency becomes more revealing, all right, and more revealing. Now I got to skip a little bit. So there comes this point where he says, my grandparents live far away, and that resulted in a paucity of memories I have of them. That is the consequence of this geographical distance. Now that claim is quite clear. Newsom is telling us he remembers relatively little about his grandparents. Yet what follows is one of the most detailed memory sequences that I've ever read. He remembers his grandfather sitting in a throne-like chair reading cowboy paperbacks. He remembers curling up at his feet. He remembers conversations, games, gifts, cigarette brands, the beige Cadillac they would drive around in, specific stores, restaurants, specific streets, specific stories. The memories continue for pages. This is not a paucity of memories. It is an abundance of them. And that is why this passage matters so much. The problem is not the word paucity. The problem is that Newsom appears not to recognize the contradiction. He announces a shortage and then supplies overwhelming evidence of the opposite. The memoir itself becomes the rebuttal. A man who may become the president of the United States writes that he possesses a paucity of memories and then spends pages demonstrating that he has not. This is brilliant stuff, by the way.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, just in time for our 250th birthday as a country, a great big new book by Eric Metaxas, one of our favorites. You've seen him a million times on TV. Maybe you read his mega book, Bonhoeffer. This is called Revolution, the Birth of the Greatest Nation in the History of the World. A new accounting by Eric Metaxas, and he is the best-selling author of Bonhoeffer. This is the Super Centennial Edition, 1776 to 2026. Welcome, sir. How are you? And congratulations on the new book.
Thank you so much, Greg. Listen, this is a day, you dream about. I mean, this is like 2 years in the making. The writing just about killed me. Like, I'm not really exaggerating too much. It was tough because it's a big book. And it is the story of the whole story, the epic story of how was our nation born 250 years ago. So, you got to tell what happened to lead up to Lexington and Concord. So it starts around at the end of the French and Indian War, kind of the battles in Boston, the crazy stuff. And obviously then you get to the Boston Massacre, the Tea Party, Lexington and Concord, and on and on and on. But these are the great stories of our history. And I felt this compulsion. I said, you and I know that in the last decades, Americans have drifted away from knowing this stuff. If you stuck a microphone in anybody's face in 1960 on Main Street America, they knew all this stuff. They can give you chapter and verse on details and stuff. We need to know this history. It's beautiful. It's heroic. Some of these heroes are so amazing that it's horrifying that we don't know their stories, don't know their names. And so it's all in the book. I said I want to be definitive. I want to tell all the stories. I believe I tell it in a way that's highly readable, because if it's not readable, turns out people won't read it. So I just feel really excited. Some of it's funny, some of it's crazy, but it's our history. And this is the 250th. I call it the Super Centennial. And I said, this is the time, this is the summer. We need to read our true story. And if you read it, you want to be part of the story. You start realizing, you know what, this isn't over. This revolution, John Adams says there's a revolution before the revolution, and then Benjamin Rush says there's a revolution after the revolution. This goes on because, you have to maintain your freedom, which means you have to understand how we got there in the first place. So, you can tell I'm a little bit excited.
Well, congratulations. You should be. It's a massive book in the best possible way. A lot of books that get published these days are thin. They're very thin. You don't feel like you're getting your money's worth. This is dense, quite frankly, and good for me especially. It has pictures of paintings and maps, and that's great.
Loads of pictures, yeah.
Hey, by the way, Super Centennial. Man, that's what we should be calling this thing. Did
I not tell you this? That one, I got that idea a year and a half ago. I said, it's called a semi-quincentennial. Nobody's going to say that, least of all President Trump. So I thought of this term supercentennial, and I'm not kidding. And you know me. I thought, I believe God gave this concept to me. It's just a crazy thing. Where did I get this idea from? And I said, if that's true, I'll get a chance to share it with the president. And long story short, I shared it with him. He got excited about it. He mentioned it on Fox News, and he was talking about it and whatever. And then I guess he forgot all about it. But I have the video of him going on and on about the term supercentennial. So it's on the cover of my book. And I think we need to celebrate. You and I remember the bicentennial. We were kids. It's like there's something exciting about this thing. This is the nation's supercentennial. I was alive during the supercentennial. It's a big deal. And listen, I really do believe it is a big deal in the sense that with this president, we are – if that bullet had killed him, it's game over for the United States of America. This is not, I'm not one of these people that believes, the pendulum swings both. No. It was over. What we have had, which we haven't deserved for 250 years, was on the verge of leaving. It was on its way out. This president, by the grace of God, understands that we need to make America great again. We need to go back to the beginning. We need to go back to basics. We need to clean up our disgusting fountains. We need to deport criminal illegals. We need to, secure the border. There's so much that needs to be done, and it wasn't getting done. And so I really believe we're on the right path. I'm excited. But at the heart of it all is we, the people, have to be we're the folks who actually govern ourselves. So everybody in America is responsible for this information, for knowing our story, knowing what our liberties are, how it works, why it's worked for so long, and how it will go away if we do nothing about it. So for me, I'm a man on a mission. This is not just a book, to be honest.
No, it's beautiful. By the way, I remember you said that during the campaign. Hey, it's all on the line here. We will lose our country if we lose this election. What would have, and actually, I never, you really, I remember well. I'm like, wow, I know the stakes are high. What would have happened? What would have happened if Kamala Harris had become president? How would it all have gone down?
I mean, look, let's first of all look at the fact that I am 1,000% convinced the election was stolen. The more time passes, the more obvious it is.
You mean in 2020?
The 2020, that the Democrats would do anything. They are not against stealing and lying and whatever. They've become the party of stealing your money and fraud and lying and what. They don't care because they don't have any principle other than power. We want power. We don't have any highfalutin ideas about liberty or America. We want power. And they would do anything to get it, just as the communist Chinese would do anything to keep power. That's just the way it is. And so they were already doing it under the Biden administration. We all know he was not running the government, that a coterie of super radical leftists with Obama, in the basement with a joystick, they were all doing things that old Joe Biden never would have done. He was never that radical, but he was a figurehead, an effigy. The AutoPen president says it, and that's actually true. And the crazy thing is, Greg, we don't want to live in a world where that could be true. We just want conspiracy theorists to talk about this kind of stuff. But the fact is, it is true. Just as much as the Holocaust happened, horrible, evil things happen in history. We need to be honest about it. And I think that what they were doing in the 4 years would have simply continued. And for that to have continued is honestly, again, there are a lot of people that live in this fantasy that, everything's, if it's not great, it'll get great again. Everything's fine. It's like, no. Have you heard of Auschwitz? If you're in a boxcar going to Auschwitz, you don't say, hey, it'll all work out in the end. Sometimes it doesn't work out in the end. Sometimes evil wins and you have to fight. And I'm absolutely convinced that we were well on our way to losing all of we already had lost our freedoms. When I think of the COVID lockdowns, when I think of the people like me were censored on social media for saying things that were actually true in the United States of America. We were demonetized, and this happened to friends of mine who went to J6, who did less than nothing just because they loved their country. They were put in prison, trumped up charges. I mean, evil that I thought, this can't happen in America. This will never happen in America. It was happening. They weaponized the government. And so if we don't undo all of that, and I mean really, really undo it and get justice and put the people behind bars who did this stuff, if we don't get serious about that, we will lose the country. But I think, we're on the path to do that. But it's not exactly easy, as we've seen. It's a huge battle. And so I believe this president is, God's man for the job, to be honest.
Putting Joe Biden aside, I think of Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, you would think, he never would have done all this crazy woke stuff. But there he is. His mouth is shut about anti-Semitism.
Well, there you go.
It really is about power. This is the dance you dance if you want power. And that's what a lot of these guys got in it for. All right, the book. How do you make, I remember it a little bit, the Stamp Act. And you got a whole chapter in here about the Stamp Act. How do you make a chapter like that come alive? If you're in 7th grade social studies and Mr. Powers is at the front of the room and he says, we're going to talk about the Stamp Act, your mind starts to wander, but it doesn't when you read this.
It's not about the Stamp Act. It's about the principles. So basically the British lost the British won the French and Indian War, and they doubled the size of their empire, and they doubled the size of their debt. And they said, you know what? Now we got this big empire. We need to get some money. We got to pay down the debt. So let's tax the colonists because they benefited mostly from, the French and Indian War, which is not true. And so they kind of cavalierly assumed that because they had, the guns or the power, that we would just shut up and do as we're told. And when they taxed us, we paid the taxes. And what they weren't banking on was the fact that it was a completely different culture on this side of the Atlantic. This was a culture almost dramatically of Christians who really believed in these ideals that our rights come from God and we're free British citizens. You can't just be thugs and put a gun in our face and say, hey, give me the money. We believe in these things. The British didn't bank on that. And so the pushback, the kickback was huge. There were riots. That's one of my favorite parts of writing about the Stamp Act. There were these riots in Boston. I want to make a movie just to illustrate what happened. It's crazy stuff, what they did. And it was really, in many ways, the little guy versus the elites. They'd been pushed around so long, and you have these very wealthy British elites that were over here kind of, as the governor and lieutenant governor. And people like John Adams writes about it, that it was nepotism. They had power. They had a good thing going. They're giving jobs to their friends. It's like the mafia. It's like, I'll give you a no-show job. You sit on that corner and we'll pay you. Just shut up and sit on that corner. There was a lot of that going on in the British government. It was very corrupt. And the Americans were like the Boy Scouts. They were like, you know what? We think corruption is bad. We are Christians. We believe that we've been governing ourselves for 150 years. And it really is amazing to see the culture clash, because the British were very cynical, very corrupt. And it's not just that they were not religious in the way most of the American colonists were. They were mocking of it. They were sneering and mocking. And it's kind of like some of the, if you think of the Manhattan elites or the Hollywood elites sneering at the people in the heartland who believe, all those suckers who believe in, family and those family values. It really was that kind of a culture clash. And I had not known this until I began doing the research for the book. I just read tons and tons of stuff, and I thought, wow, this is a story of good versus evil, of corruption versus innocent. I honestly didn't know that. And so when I started to write the book, the goal was just to tell these great stories, because there's amazing stories and heroes, and I said somebody needs to put that in one volume, not in 30 volumes or in 10, just one volume. Here's the whole story. And people kept saying, what's your angle on the revolution? I said, I have no angle. I just want to tell the stories. I think if you just tell the stories, that's beautiful, But the angle that came out, some of what I've been sharing with you, I didn't know that. And so it really does become a story of good versus evil. I absolutely had no clue about that until I began doing the research. So I think a lot of people will be surprised. I mean, I try not to lay it on thick because I just want it to be it's a mainstream book. You can give it to anybody for Father's Day or for, just the standard, here's the story. But there's a subtext which I really had not been aware of. And it's quite dramatic. And then there are figures like George Washington. He's often said that people say, oh, he's a deist. Nonsense. It is such nonsense. These guys
What's a deist?
A deist is somebody who, doesn't really believe in God. They'll use terms like, he'll say providence because, he's just talking about luck or fate. But baloney. I mean, Washington and all of that generation were really radical Christians. I mean, one of the biggest takeaway for me is that they had what you would call, I guess the Puritans call it a covenantal view of things, right? That if we behave righteously, God will bless us. And that goes to the Old Testament. So you have all of these, the Puritans are, they're like the Israelites. They say that blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. So if we behave well, God will bless us. They really believed that. And John Adams and George Washington and many others, they wrote about this. And they said that, we're fighting the war. We've got to fight the war in a way that honors God. We're not going to stoop to the barbarities of the British. We're not going to bayonet our prisoners. We're not going to. We're going to fight righteously, and that idea is everywhere. And that's what I was saying. Is like I didn't know this. So as I'm doing my research, I thought, wow, I didn't hear this in public school. You're not hearing this on PBS watching Ken Burns. They're giving you this whole other narrative, and it's not right. It's really and truly not right.
Hey, remember this: Ken Burns would not be the star he is if he didn't have that goofy haircut. Half of it is the haircut. The book is called Revolution, the Birth of the Greatest Nation in the History of the World, 1776 to 2026. Super Centennial Edition, a new accounting by Eric Metaxas, available wherever books are sold. Hey, real quick, Revolution. You mentioned January 6th. You had friends down there. And it reminds me a little bit, I remember there was a guy running down the hall apparently, and he said the spirit of 1776. They started to use our own kind of revolutionary kind of roots against us.
Of course they did.
Which was really, right? Yeah.
They are ideologically speaking, they have everything in common. I mean, they're actually worse than the British, but they have everything ideologically in common with the British. It's like, we don't believe in your stupid rights come from God. Where'd you get that stupid idea? Your rights come from us, and we'll give them to you when we feel like it. I mean, that is as anti-American as anything ever could be. And that's where the left has gone. They weren't there, under Kennedy, but they have drifted there, and they are there now. And we need to, we just need to know that. And by the way, if anybody needs incentive to buy my book today, you know what book is also launching today?
Jill Biden's?
Mike Pence's book is launching today, and Jill Biden's book is launching today. So please choose accordingly.
Mike Pence, he's a character. I know. I saw him pushing the book over the weekend. The Trump-Pence administration. I'm very proud of what we accomplished together.
Well, he's very proud.
He's very pompous and weird. Revolution, the birth of the greatest nation in the history of the world. Eric Metaxas, congratulations. This man can write. It's I love holding it in my hands. It is a book I haven't purchased a new book like this in a long time. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's going to deliver.
It's a happy story, and many people have already told me that they can't put it down. That's what you want to hear as an author. I couldn't put it down. That's what I want to hear, because honestly, we all do need to know this stuff. This is important, and these are exciting stories and amazing heroes and some real villains. As you read it, you'll see some real villains whose names we need to know. So, this is our story.
Well, congratulations once again, Eric Metaxas. You bet, sir. The book, Revolution, the Birth of the Greatest Nation in the History of the World, available now. Thank you, Eric, and we'll be right back.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
It's true. Sometimes if the book isn't thick enough, I will not buy it. I will not buy the thing. Let's see. Line 4, Greg in Michigan. Hello.
Hey, G-Money, Greg, Mr. Positive. Hey, I think he was wrong about Thomas Jefferson. I think he was an atheist. But it sounds like
I don't think he actually specifically mentioned Thomas Jefferson.
The founding fathers were basically...
I know, but he didn't. No, he was talking about Washington. He didn't say Thomas Jefferson, though, in that little spiel.
Very good. Point well taken. I got to ask you, Trump is going through some roadblocks. How do you think it's affecting him mentally with the ballroom, the $1.8 million slush fund? And here's the thing.
Slush fund? Wait a second. Did you say slush fund?
No, slush.
Slush.
S-L-U-S.
Yeah, slush fund. Well, that's a very negative connotation. That's money that people deserve. They were abused by the government. They were exploited. They were abused. They had their rights taken away. This is a justified settlement. That wasn't nice at all. This is no slush fund. Greg, Mr. Positive.
Here's the other thing.
No. I've had about enough from you, Greg. I don't see it that way at all. Tom, how are you? Line 2, hi.
Hey, Greg. So before I start, I'm a former Marine aviator, somewhat. I was a crew chief on a Marine 46. But I wanted to address everybody screaming about Bill Pulte becoming the head of the DNI. Everybody forgets that Obama appointed Ben Rhodes as the head of DNI. Do you know what his qualifications were? He was a bundler. He had no national intelligence service.
No, I know about Ben Rhodes. I didn't realize he was DNI. Are you sure about that?
100%.
DNI when? Like late in the term or something like that?
No, he was the head of national intelligence.
I thought he was the press guy for National Security Council.
In fact,
I'll take a look at it. I'll take a look at it. If that's true, that's a good point. That's an excellent point, actually. I'm going to check it out. Thank you. Let's see here. Frank, how are you?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
I was looking at that sewer story, the local story in New York from the honeymooners angle. You opened up in a lighthearted way today, so I figured you'd appreciate it. I mean, what would Ed Norton say? Somebody invading his territory down in the sewers.
Ed Norton, of course. Ed Norton was an engineer in subterranean sanitation, and he would be quite alarmed by non-professionals going down there and helping themselves to what? How would you like it if he went down to the sewer and helped himself to anything down there? Help himself to what? Remember that one?
On a radio show, they had a sewer worker.
I know. Thank you very much. That was the episode featuring Rita, by the way. Rita, I think. There's the music. I got to get the hell out of here. Call back tomorrow. Love you guys. And try to buy Eric Metaxas' book. All right? He worked his ass off on this thing. Hours and hours, hundreds of hours alone from family, friends, you name it, cloistered in a room with books and writing material. Now it's payback. Revolution, the birth of the greatest nation in the history of the world by Eric Metaxas, a patriot.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Roger Stone here. Your dollars are losing ground, but gold isn't. American Sovereign Bullion helps you protect your wealth through real, tangible assets. Through their nationwide wholesaler network, you get some of the best pricing on gold and silver delivered straight to your door. Since 1912, the U.S. dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power. Meanwhile, gold continues to prove its strength. So call 844-272-2428. That's 844-272-2428. Or visit dyingdollar.com to request your free gold and silver guide. That's dyingdollar.com.